Okay, this is Ty Kevin 83, and we're doing a re-record here of a backyard baseball race run. We're starting off here by picking players that have strong hitting stats and players that have fast pitch animations. We're also picking a mirror there so that we can deny the enemy team a pitch animation that is slow and also inaccurate for us, while simultaneously Amir hits very well. We're wrapping up our team with other players who either hit well or sometimes players that hit very poorly when used by the enemy team, but we can control them to get out very quickly, even if they don't necessarily hit well. Once we get through player selection, we go over to the team setup phase where I switch in Ronnie as my main pitcher because, like I said, we picked him because his animation is quick. Now we're into the game here. I switched to using the power setting before the pitcher or after the pitcher started winding up. That meant that the pitcher didn't get slowed down by me selecting which thing to use. You can see power, line drive, grounder, and bunt on the screen there. And yeah, that's those are different ways of hitting. Power is usually the only one that can really hit home runs, but those are more accurate or are more likely to get single base hits sometimes. So those can be really good if you're trying to get out intentionally because you can try to use them to hit the ball at an enemy fielder. So now we're in the top of the first inning here. It's a 6-inning run. So we got to do 6 tops and 6 bottom of the innings. Ronnie here is a really good pitcher, but he's not great at hitting. We're using the bunt with him because his swing animation is so much longer than his bunt animation. That's why we like to do his bunt. And also, we like to do this timeout canceling strat. I'll see if that happens here in a second. Oh, we hit the ball in play, so he's going to get out manually. But we'll definitely show. I'll explain timeout canceling when we get there. So you can see how quick Ronnie throws the ball. It's a very, very quick animation when I use Ronnie to pitch. And you can see the timeout animation cancel here. So there's a throwback, and you can cancel part of the throwback from the catcher by going to timeout and back, and then pitching again immediately. In the field, you do have to do some of the manual fielding there, like when you throw to first, then you try to click immediately after the first baseman gets the ball because it doesn't cancel you out of the fielding session until you move after getting an out. It's so weird. And so now we got really lucky this run, and we got a home run with Tony, so we didn't have to like try to grind getting a score off of one of the at-bats. If you do, it's usually taken a few extra minutes for us. We did a race of this. We did like 6 races, and we mostly got times around the 16, 17-minute range. And actually, like a few of our races were very, very close, like came down to a few seconds apart in the last inning, with us being both very close to finishing. So there's a lot of RNG in the game, but it makes it really competitive in the ends of races here because it's actually not that difficult to consistently get your one run. And then I'll show after we go through this top of the inning here, we save at the bottom of each inning, and that way if our enemy if the AI hits a home run on us or gets somebody super fast into play, we can just reload the save from the beginning of the inning and replay the inning. And it's very consistent to get 3 outs in an inning, so reloading the save is a pretty consistent strategy. So you can see I save here at bottom 2 because I see I have to go up against Pablo. I think, though, in this run, I get very trolled by the AI hitting homers. Okay, so this is the part of the run where you can do donation reads because the AI will inevitably troll you with hitting a homer. And so now you can pass it off to the donation booth. But yeah, this is Backyard Baseball. This game came out in 1997 for the PC. The community plays it on an emulator called ScumVM. because the game was actually designed in a engine for a point and click RPG series called the it's the scripting engine for Maniac Mansion is what it's called. So Scum VM. And it's basically a rewrite of the engine that these games run on. So it can take all of the assets from the game and play them back on a modern computer. It is possible to play these games also on Windows XP mode for Windows 7 or on Windows XP itself in a VM. So it's not impossible to play these games outside of an emulator, and we could easily get that set up if we needed to in the actual marathon. So we can see here, this was the section of the run that I had trouble with in terms of the race, but because I saved before the bottom of the inning, the time loss from this wasn't really a problem beyond just having to wait through not getting homered over and over again. This is also a strong showing of why it's important to get the players that hit well in team selection. And another thing we can do if we're really worried about this kind of scenario in a marathon is we can build the team outside of the splits. There's a lot of different variation about, like, nobody really runs this game as a race very often because it's not really conducive to that unless you're trying to do it for a marathon. So we kind of built this strategy of building the team within the race as part of making it more consistent and more marathon viable. But you could even make it more marathon viable by having all the racers on the same team and loading up a save with a set of teams for you and the AI. And so everybody could be the same. Another cool quirk we're thinking about doing for a GDQ submission is a Mr. Clanky submission for an incentive. So Mr. Clanky is a special character you can unlock by clicking on a hidden button in one of the opening menus. There's a series of menus to get into the game, and if you click into a trophy case and click on a button for Mr. Clanky, it will enable him in player selection. So you can use Mr. Clanky, and we think that would be really cool to do a donation incentive where the team is pre-built with Mr. Clanky instead of being pre-built without Mr. Clanky. Or just trying to have one of us pick it after both enabling Mr. Clanky possibility. But you can see here now, we've lost a bunch of time from those home runs, but we're getting back in it, and we're getting back to being able to use the speed of Ronnie's pitching to our advantage. So Maria catches this. It is difficult sometimes to position players to catch hits. They have to be facing the ball, or they can drop it much more easily. Even though errors are actually a setting in the game, you can turn errors off, and we do in runs. The game will still cause errors even when errors are off because of bugs. So one of the bugs is that if you're not facing the ball, you can still drop it with errors off. So we intentionally manipulate some of the things, like the position of our player in direction of facing a ball when it's hit, to try to lessen bugs. Oh, another thing is that we like to try to put tall players at first base, because one of the things that the AI doesn't know to do when you throw between bases is the height of the first baseman. It assumes they're all tall, so unless you actually have a tall first baseman, it can overthrow the first baseman and get them out on accident. And you can see here intentionally getting into a pickle to get out faster, and then doing the save strat. So we don't have to worry about getting trolled again. Line drives are generally our favorite thing to get in the run because strikeouts take 3 swings. And here Ernie actually has the slowest swing of any batter. So it shows off how his swing animation is so slow. You can't click the timeout button until after the animation finishes. So you have to actually just not do the timeout animation cancel because the animation lasts too... One of the other animations lasts too long beforehand. Oh, man. But now we're starting to get back some good line drives here, and Keisha's fast in the outfield there, so she can go get that out. I think Kenny might have gotten that one, but yeah. As long as you don't have the AI fighting over a hit, one of them will catch it. And you can see how the bunt there allowed me to do the animation cancel with timeout on Ronnie, whereas if I had gone for a swing with him, it would have been like Ernie, and the animation cancel would have been impossible. And we've already got our 1 home run, so we don't need to be using players like Amir to try to get home runs anymore. So we'll just go to bunt strats or grounder strats sometimes for them. Grounder strats can be faster because the AI characters will get the ball faster if you hit a grounder at them. But sometimes it's kind of an RNG thing. Like bunts are very consistently outs, quick outs. But grounders can either be really, really fast outs or accidental singles. Ashley and her sister Sydney are a cool quirk of the run. If they're on the same team, it buffs all of their stats by 1 point. So they become extremely good. But in this character selection, we picked one of them and the AI picked the other. So they're only decent instead of very, very good. And saving again. Foul balls are like the bane of the run, but luckily we actually didn't get a foul ball there. This is just... we really don't like not being able to get an out in a run, because then you have to throw the ball back to the pitcher, and if the pitcher's AI decides to go cover a base like that, then they have to run back to the mound after you throw the ball back to them. So it's actually really unfortunate if somebody gets a good hit on you and you're not able to get them out. Sometimes you can throw the ball back to an outfielder to trick them into continuing to try to advance bases. But that strat isn't used too often because it's not terribly consistent. And there you can see us taking advantage of one of the rules of baseball, where if a ball is caught in midair, then the player trying to advance a base, it has to return to the base they were advancing from. You can see us getting out intentionally there, running off the base and running back to it to get out faster. Billie Jean has a pretty slow animation, but you can't really do that much about what the AI's pitcher animation is beyond trying to select characters that have fast animations. Or select characters that have slow pitch animations and good traits for you, like hitting. Oh, here's another cool quirk here with Pablo. So you can see there when we did the animation cancel plus save after Pablo's first at bat, he waved at us going back into the game, and that caused a delay. That's just time loss. And it's an entirely RNG-based thing. If you do the timeout strat, some of the characters have an extra animation when going in and out of menus. So, like, Pablo's is waving. Tony has, like, a thing he does with a sucker where he, like, pulls it out of his mouth and puts it back. It's crazy. So you really want to try to... The timeout strat ends up being really complicated because there's, like, 30 characters. So you have to know what each character has in terms of whether they don't or do have a animation coming out of the timeout, and only do the timeout strat on ones that have very short animations or no animation. And then also only do it when their swing animation of the batter is fast enough that you can actually do the timeout strat. So it's so many layers to that. Gonna save here again. We're in the bottom of the sixth. We're right at the end of the run now, and it's coming down the line. I think in this race, my opponent finished at like just over a 15 mark. So we got really lucky in this race, though. So we're submitting it as more like a 22-minute estimate because in a few of the races we did, one of us was going into like the 23-24 minute range with mistakes. So, but none of our races lasted more than 24 minutes. So it seems pretty consistent that we can get in like the low, or like the high teens And then if something really wrong goes wrong, you'll get into the 24. So we're thinking 22 is a good estimate for a race of it. And it can be done not as a race too. It's totally reasonable to not do this as a race, but we think it's an interesting thing to do because there's not really often done, like, nobody really does races of sports games, especially single player ones like baseball. And some of our races were actually really competitive, like multiple ones within half a minute to a minute of each other, and on the same at bat in the bottom of the 6th inning. So we think that would be a really cool aspect. You can see how I threw to Dimitri there to try to get Billie Jean to run, and she didn't go for it. That's just, you can't consistently manip the AI into making mistakes. They just very often do. So it's worth it to try to throw the ball back away from the pitcher sometimes. But here we get our 3rd out, and the run's over. So that's Backyard Baseball. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. We win 1-0. We have to win to finish the run by our timing standards. That's just kind of how we do things. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know. And that's it. That's Backyard Baseball for the PC from 1997.